to College Tailgaters. My name is Chris America, and joining me is, of course, Mr. Sean Daly. How you doing, Sean?
Chris, I'm trying to stay warm. We talked about this warm front coming through last week. It's now currently -6 outside here in the Midwest, so trying to stay warm. Thinking of you down there in sunny Florida. I know it must be a little chilly there too, in like the 60s. But yeah, like you said,
I went for a morning run in my shorts and a t-shirt. It was a nice, balmy 65, foggy.
Oh man,
cleared up a little bit. It was a little humid. I was complaining a little bit about the humidity down here. But what did you say, -6?
Yeah, -6. I had to shovel in shifts. I couldn't complete the driveway in one go. So it's good times here, winter in the Midwest.
Do you have a snowblower?
No. This is all manual labor here. How do you think I get so jacked all the time?
That's true. You are pretty ripped. I don't know. Your t-shirt bill must be through the roof with how many shirts you rip just from flexing.
Yeah, sleeveless Sundays, sun's out, guns out. So it's -6, but it's nice and sunny. So you got to show the world what you got.
That's right. Sun's out, guns out. Did you have a white Christmas?
We did. Yeah, it was the first real snowfall of the year, so it worked out for us here. I assume you guys did not.
No, this is the first Christmas, though, I think in probably 4 or 5 years where the temperature stayed below 70 degrees, which I was happy about because I hate Christmas being 80 degrees. It's kind of stupid to have 80-degree Christmas. And even the people that are from up north, that's the only time they complain about the warm weather down here is when it's Christmas. They even agree with me that it should be cold during Christmas time. And then once December 26th hits, every single northerner that lives down here now, they all agree that they're glad they live down here.
They just want that one day.
They just want that one day. I think they should move Christmas for you guys from December to maybe January. Kind of give you that halfway point of, hey, now that Christmas is over, we're almost to spring.
Yeah, you have something to look forward to.
For you guys, it's like Christmas is over, and now you're like, okay, I'm over the snow. But I have until, March?
Yeah, February, March before it's gone.
So, anyways, you had a good Christmas, though?
I did. And like you said, I'm Sean Daly. You can find me on Twitter, @TailgaterSean. How was your Christmas? Where can we find you, the show, all that stuff?
You could find my Christmas tweets @ChrisScoutTeam or @ScoutTeamRadio. Send out a whole bunch of Christmas tweets to people. Love using the GIFs. Do you say GIFs or GIF?
I'm old school. I'm GIFs. GIFs is the peanut butter.
GIFs is the peanut butter, but choosy podcast hosts choose GIF.
That's true. Touche.
All right, so another good thing about this Christmas season since we last talked was recruiting signing day, and my man Dan Mullen hit it out of the park. He signed a quarterback. He got 2 really good wide receivers to transfer from Ole Miss and Ohio State. My man hit the ground running. Florida Gators in a transition class up to 16th now. I know recruiting isn't everything, but you like to hear good news rather than bad news when it comes to recruiting, and it's been all good news for the Florida Gators since Dan Mullen's gotten here. I'm pretty excited, man.
Yeah, Emory Jones is a big signing for Florida, and the story was pretty cool because he was originally committed to Ohio State, correct?
Yeah, he's been committed to Ohio State for a minute, and Dan Mullen actually recruited this kid back when he was a freshman, obviously while he was at Mississippi State. And this just goes to show there's nothing against Mississippi State. I don't want Mississippi State fans to listen to the show. We love you guys. We appreciate your support. But you guys have to admit, there's a difference between Mississippi State and Florida. And it's showing right now the type of talent that Dan Mullen has got while he's been at Florida has been far and away above what he got while he was at Mississippi State. Now, Dak Prescott was a good quarterback. There's no doubt about it, but he wasn't as highly touted as the other guys. And so you have to wonder, was Dak Prescott just under the radar and the scouts were wrong? Or did Dan Mullen just develop Dak Prescott into a good quarterback, kind of like chicken and the egg kind of thing?
Right, but this Emory Jones, the story I read about this has got to be exciting for Florida fans, where they said when he was choosing Florida, he texted Coach Mullen, and he said, "Coach, I'm your guy. I'm the quarterback who's going to win a national title at Florida." And that type of confidence and, the rapport that the coach and quarterback already have has got to be something exciting for you guys, even if he doesn't play at all next year, because you guys still got, Franks is not a bad quarterback. So under the right guidance, maybe Mullen can develop it a little bit, but the future's looking bright in Gainesville for sure.
No, yeah, and a lot of Gator fans have basically acted like Franks is already transferred. Nobody's talking about that kid anymore, and I'm not sleeping on Franks just yet. I want to see a good quarterback battle, and I want to see Dan Mullen develop both of those guys and see what we can have. The problem with Franks has been all mental. It hasn't been any physical attributes.
He's got the arm talent.
Right, the arm talent's there. He's 6'5". For a 6'5" guy, he's fairly mobile. He's obviously not Michael Vick, but he can get the job done as far as running the ball in a respectable manner. He's not Peyton Manning either, sitting back there. So we'll see what can happen. All of his mistakes that he made throughout this year is more of like a coaching. It's a coaching thing, not a talent thing. So hopefully Dan Mullen can come in and fix that up. And like I said, the other exciting things was that we got a couple of wide receivers in, a few offensive linemen, and we got the number 2, and some websites say the number 1 kicker in the country. You know your recruiting class is solid when you get the top 2 rated kicker in the country.
It's the year of the kicker. How many games in college football are decided by missed field goals? So people joke and all that, but it's extremely important. I mean, Jim Harbaugh got the number 1 kicker last year, and this kid's out there bombing 50-yard field goals. So it is very important. Nothing to sleep on getting a good kicker.
We just had a guy that just left, Eddie Pinheiro. He could bomb kicks as well, and this is how bad Florida football has been over the last few years. Anytime that guy would go out onto the field, the crowd would chant his name. There would be standing ovations. This guy pumped up the crowd. It was like the one thing we could get exciting about was our kicker and our punter. So, and the other funny thing about
I saw
kickers,
that for years in Champaign with Steve Weatherford, punter, getting MVP chants. He went on to have a great NFL career, won a few Super Bowls, I think, with the Giants. But yeah, MVP chants for the punter, so I know that pain.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. And ask Alabama fans, for whatever reason, Nick Saban cannot recruit a kicker. If you're playing Alabama, the game is close, and Alabama has to kick a field goal to win, you're feeling pretty good. And my boy Sean, he's a huge Alabama fan, and he's told me for years, can we just have your kicker? Can you just send us your kicker? And the funny thing about this kicker that we just got, he's out of Alabama, so I have to assume that Nick Saban just doesn't even think the position exists as far as recruiting goes, because here he has a number 2 kicker in his backyard, and Florida somehow gets him. I don't know how that works.
I've never understood how these big programs don't have like an automatic kicker. And if you don't have one, how do you not go over to the soccer practice and line them up and see who can kick? It's a big school, Bama. There's like 40,000 students there, 50,000 students. Someone there could kick field goals.
Whether they're on the soccer team now or they played soccer in high school or something.
The rugby team, anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Go to what is that? What is it? Where it's not like a funded sport. What are those called? When you have
non-revs.
A team, non-revs, not non-revs, no. Where it's kind of like a club team. Yeah, the club teams.
Oh, yeah, the club teams,
team rugby teams.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So the biggest story coming out of the recruiting trail was Georgia and how huge of a recruiting class that is. You see this a lot in college football where your second year recruiting class is always usually better than your first or your third. And Georgia, Kirby Smart, man, he hit it out of the park. 6 5-stars, 12 4-stars. That's 18 players right there. He doesn't even need to recruit anymore. Just get those 18 players in. He ended up with one of the top quarterbacks as well. So he has Eason, Fromm, and now Justin Fields. Man, Georgia fans definitely have a lot to be excited about with this second year where they have the top recruiting class and they're playing for a national title. What do you think over there?
Yeah, it's incredible what they've done. Like you said, the number 1 dual threat quarterback, the number 1 running back, the number 1 offensive guard, the number 2 offensive tackle, the number 1 outside linebacker. It's incredible what they're pulling in this year. That's a ton of talent, and you need that to compete in the SEC and in the playoff picture as a whole. So it's exciting to see where they're going forwards. Big infusion of offensive talent. Looks like this team kind of leans on their defense this year, and it looks like there's a lot of offense coming in next year. They could be a scary team in a year or two.
Yeah, I know I was low on Georgia most of the year, and if you've seen my tweets, you know that I've been low on Kirby Smart. It's not that I'm low on him, it's more I'm a wait and see kind of guy. There's a lot of positives and a lot of things for Georgia fans to be excited about, but let's wait and see how this pans out. We've seen a lot of times. I mean, right now I'm staring at the rankings and I see Texas at number 3. There's been several times where Texas has been in the top 3 the last 10 years as far as recruiting class goes. They basically have their pick of the litter when it comes to Texas talent. And we haven't seen them translate that onto the football field as far as wins and championships goes. So I think it's very positive with Georgia and where Kirby Smart has taken the program. But I'm going to hold off before I pass that baton from Alabama to Georgia just yet, which a lot of people are trying to do now.
Yeah, I'd agree. Recruiting is definitely not everything. As you said, Texas is always a top 5 recruiting class. All their guys this year, they got like 6 of the top 10 DBs in the country or something, which is kind of a different trend for Texas. They generally go offensive. You don't think of Texas as a defensive team, so maybe they're trying to shift the culture there a little bit. But yeah, a top 10 recruiting class doesn't always mean anything. Wisconsin has the 38th ranked recruiting class this year. They're behind teams like Iowa, Vanderbilt, North Carolina. And if you think for 1 second that Vanderbilt's going to be a better team than Wisconsin next year, you're out of your mind. So it's all about developing these players. Wisconsin wins with these 3-star guys. Let's see what Texas and teams like Georgia can do with all these 5 and 4 stars that they're getting.
Yeah, and you like to see teams like Miami and Penn State. These are up-and-coming programs that have been building themselves back up. And Franklin and Rick have kept their momentum going. You got Penn State at number 4, Miami sitting at number 6, with Alabama sandwiched in between them. I think these 2 programs right here, Penn State and Miami, are going to be ones to look out for these coming years. I think both coaches are building up these teams right. They're getting the recruits that fit their system. And let's see if they can continue on that upward trend that they've had over the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, I think the only thing that can derail Penn State's momentum at this point is if James Franklin gets NFL offers, because I think he is the perfect coach for Penn State, especially after all the scandal they had. He's pretty squeaky clean. He's a great motivator, and as evidenced by the recruiting rankings, he's a great recruiter.
Yeah, I still can't believe the SEC let him go. He was sitting in their backyard at Vanderbilt for so many years, and Florida had so many opportunities to hire him. You see Ole Miss, LSU, a lot of teams, Tennessee. How many cracks did they get to have to go across the state to Nashville and give this guy an offer, and never did? And Penn State's been reaping the reward from their mistake. How are your Illinois Illini doing, bud?
They're doing about as expected. Right now they clock in at 49th in the recruiting rankings. They got 2 4-star recruits. They just picked one up the other day. He signed right at the Illinois basketball bragging rights game when they beat Missouri down in St. Louis. So they're headlined by a 4-star defensive tackle out of Texas, Calvin Avery, and they got another 4-star offensive guard who just signed, was at the bragging rights game, Vertus Brown, out of Chicago. So it's good to see them recruiting Chicago a little bit. Chicago is known more for basketball than football. But to get some in-state talent is always good. Both these guys are expected to play right away. They're both big bodies, ready to play in the Big Ten. So, like I said, the recruiting rankings don't mean everything. 49 is nice for Illinois, but it's all about some development, so we'll see what Lovie Smith can get out of these guys.
Yeah, and then one last thing I want to talk about with the recruiting that just happened is the transition classes. I talked about how exciting it is that Florida is sitting at number 16. Dan Mullen was on campus for about 3 weeks to get that class together, and that's the top transition recruiting class right now. They're number 1 out of all transition classes. And funny to say that number 2 is Mississippi State coming in at number 21. They have 21 recruits. I'm not sure how many of those were signed, but hey, Mississippi State was able to hold on to what Dan Mullen had already got going, and they pulled the offensive coordinator from under James Franklin at Penn State and brought him in. And then surprisingly, man, Tennessee coming in as the number 3 transition class at 27. It looks like Pruitt's putting in some really good work there at Tennessee. And then Willie Taggart at one point on signing day, Florida State was at number 70. They fall in just behind UCLA, who's also a transition class. At 33 is UCLA and 34 is Florida State. But, man, things were looking really ugly for Florida State there for a while.
Yeah, Virtus Brown, the offensive guard we were just talking about, who signed with the Illini, he chose them over Florida State, was his second pick. But Florida State did what they always do. They got a 5-star. They got a bunch of 4-stars. There's so much talent in not only Florida but the South in general that some of these 4-stars just can fall into your lap. But Taggart, he has hit the ground running like a lot of these coaches have. And you don't expect many of these programs to take a big step back. They kind of keep rolling along.
Yep, and then the one other big hire that fell, or the next big transition school is Nebraska. They're sitting at 42. I've been not so critical on Frost leaving UCF, but just on can he recruit the talent that he needs at a school or an area like Nebraska, like Lincoln, Nebraska. Again, it's just a transition class, so we'll have to wait and see. I do appreciate the fact that he's dedicated his time to UCF and coaching this bowl game, and we'll talk more about that later on in the episode. But 42 is not bad for a guy. I'm not sure where Nebraska was beforehand, but hey, it's a transition class, so being in the top 5 of transition classes or top 6 is not bad.
Yeah, and the talent it's already going to be different than the talent he can get at UCF. UCF's sitting at 74 right now, one spot behind Herm Edwards at Arizona State, where Herm doesn't even know what the team's mascot is. But
he's still going on ESPN, man.
I don't think he understands that he actually got hired.
Yeah. UCF is also one of those schools that they'll always fall within the top 50, top 75 range. But I'll take a 3-star athlete out of Florida than a 4-star athlete out of Montana or something like that. I just would, especially with the type of system that UCF runs with that spread offense. Right. Florida has a ton of speed that it's just like we talked about with Felipe Franks. It's one thing, you can't coach physical ability. You either have speed or you don't. You either have an arm or you don't. It's what I think a lot of these athletes, what makes them a 3-star as opposed to a 4 and 5-star is their readiness to play right now. So some of these 3-star athletes are probably athletic-wise, they're probably 5-star athletes. They're just raw, underdeveloped talent at some of these high schools that don't run big systems. They run simple systems and stuff. So.
And you get the flip side down in Florida, too. You get the kids who can do everything, but they only weigh 175 pounds.
That's true. So
they're lightning quick, but they need some time to bulk up a little bit.
Maybe you need to get with Will Greer's guy who helped him gain some weight down in Florida. But, I mean, when UCF, when Frost was at UCF, I mean, he never recruited anything above 50. And here UCF is undefeated. It's kind of what you talked about with recruiting. Sometimes it matters, but the stars and stuff don't always have to align for you to be a successful team. I mean, look at Boise State sitting at 62. That's probably where they hover around most of the time. And they're
going to win 10 games next year.
Yeah. So all in all, I'm glad recruiting's over for the most part. We'll get another wave of it coming in February. But I'm glad to no longer see my timeline littered with people begging recruits, 17-year-old boys, to come play with them and tell them how much they love them.
You end up on a list for that.
You do end up on a list. You get like a pin over your house on the internet. You get like a blue dot. And then what is it? Chris Hansen? What was that guy's name?
Oh, yeah, he was the best. Why don't you take a seat right over here?
Why don't you take a seat right over here? Man, I used to watch that show, like, addicted to it. It was ridiculous how good that show was. Anyways, we digress. Let's roll into bowl season now. Now it's bowl season. We've had several bowls, and I'm kind of excited. We've bounced back. You had a big day yesterday. You were towards the bottom of the list with 5 wins, and then you surged back 3-0, and you did something I didn't do. You made a switch at Utah. You had West Virginia, and then you switched over to Utah. I didn't know Will Greer was hurt.
Yeah, the fighting Will Greer's. No Will Greer is no pick for me, so I saw he wasn't playing and made the switch. And like I said, 3-0 yesterday, charged right back. I think I'm 2 wins off the pace right now, or 3 wins off the pace. So
right now the leader is a guy named Tunes352. That's at Tunes352. He's a buddy of ours with, well, he's not a buddy of ours. Our buddy, Podcast BSR, the Basement Sports Report, Clayton, he's tied with him for first. He's buddies, so that at Insider352, he's in the lead with our boy, Podcast BSR. That's at Podcast BSR, Basement Sports Report. They're another podcast that we love to listen to, and they give us shout-outs all the time. So it's good to see them in the lead. And then you and I got 9 wins. Jen, my girlfriend, has 9 wins. And then you're right behind us with 8, right?
That's correct.
So we're doing pretty good. Everybody's within striking distance, too. So the leader has 11 wins. And I think last place has 5. So we won't say who that was. They were kind of embarrassed that I called them out on
They
Twitter,
know who
so
they
I won't
are.
do that again. They know who they are. But everybody else is within striking distance. 12-Ounce Sports, they're a good sports podcast. Give them a listen at 12-Ounce Sports. Obviously, our show's on their radio station. The Girls Beer Sports podcast at Girls Beer Sports. They got 6 wins. And then, of course, our fangirl, Jody Cab. She's right behind. She's tied with you with 8. And then I'm not sure who at PB Army ASAP is, but he's at 8, or she. Could be a she. But that's our leaderboard. And like I said, I would be at 10 right now if I would have known Will Greer was out. Man, did West Virginia play like garbage against Utah without Will Greer?
Yeah, a lot of these games weren't very good until we hit the Birmingham Bowl, and then it seemed like every game was great. In the Birmingham Bowl, we saw USF take out Texas Tech, and this was an incredibly entertaining game. Both defenses were forcing turnovers left and right. Quentin Flowers, we've talked about him. I got to see him beat my Illini early in the year. We got to see him play UCF in probably the game of the year. He's awesome. He's so much fun to watch, a dual-threat quarterback, and he threw a great deep ball late in that game to secure the win. Just an entertaining game overall.
Yeah, and the Americans started off slow. SMU got blown out by Louisiana Tech, and then they came back strong. Temple blew out FIU, and then, like you just said, USF beating out TTU, Texas Tech, 38-34. American starts out with a 2-1 record. Maction doesn't look as good. I think they're 1-1 looking at their overall record. Nope. 1-2. Sorry, I didn't see Akron was sitting there. They're in the MAC, right?
Yeah, and I'm 1-2 in the bowl games because my stupid brain works at like teams I see a lot, I pick a lot, and thanks to Maction being on every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I see all these MAC teams all the time, and I was like, ooh, Akron pick, lose, Toledo, lose. I pick all the MAC teams, and
Wait, you picked Akron over FAU?
Oh, no, that was the one I got right. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Can't go against the lane train, man.
No, as a podcast, we are firmly behind the lane train. Life in the fast lane.
And man, I was surprised Houston lost to Fresno State. I was for certain Houston would. So I missed that Houston loss. So that makes the American 2-2. So kind of ho-hum average. But yeah, West Virginia threw me for a loop. They could get nothing going on offense. And that, you got to wonder what that means for Holgerson, because he's kind of just been there. He came in with a lot of hype. He was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma State, was he not?
Yeah, that sounds right. They should be all right going forward, though. Greer's coming back for another year, so you're going to have a veteran quarterback leading your team, which is a huge piece. They should be, I'd say, probably top third of their conference next year. I wouldn't expect them, to challenge for a playoff or anything, but they're going to be, I think, a team ranked in the low teens, high 20s most of the year.
Yeah, but they've just been kind of that middle-of-the-road Big 12 team since he's been there. I know they're more used to the Big East, where the talent level or the team levels aren't as good as it is in the Big 12. But you gotta think, if you're a West Virginia fan, you want more than just, 4th or 5th place finish in the Big 12, where you can't compete with Oklahoma or TCU. And you kind of want to see more than just a December 26th or December 27th bowl game.
Yeah, there's a lot of programs out there, though, that would kill for what West Virginia has now.
I'm sure your Illini would love to be West Virginia.
Yeah, so we'll see what they do. I think having Greer come back next year, I mean, he's got to be a front runner for like Big 12 Player of the Year right out of the gate. So we'll see what they can do.
And I bit on NIU. I took the team from Chicago. I thought, man, they killed Nebraska.
DeKalb, not Chicago.
Huh?
DeKalb, not Chicago.
Well, what is DeKalb? What is this? What is like? Are you speaking Japanese right now to me? What are you talking about?
That's where they're from, DeKalb, Illinois, not Chicago. Don't let them fool you. They're from a suburb.
Is that a suburb of Illinois?
Yeah.
I forgot you're like a hoity-toity Chicago guy. Like, you tell me that Northwestern's not in Chicago?
No, they're barely Evanston's Big Ten team, not Chicago's Big Ten team.
Anyways, I fell for it. I picked NIU to beat Duke, and Duke just thrashed them 36-14.
Northern
0 for 2.
Northern, they shot themselves in the foot. Now their coach has an incredible bowl record. I think that was only like his second bowl loss. But Northern did some things. They did a fake punt from their own 10 when they were down by 7 in the first quarter. And their punter, of course, threw it incomplete. So they're down 14-0 right out of the gate. But to their credit, they did score. They got those 14 points back in the next 3 minutes. So it was back and forth for the first 9 minutes of the game. But then, yeah, Duke. It was obvious watching that game. Duke was the more talented team, and they were in control from that point out.
Yeah, and I was 0-2 after that game went down, and UCLA, I picked Kansas State. UCLA jumps up 17-7, and I went from talking trash at the beginning of the day because I was tied for first or one out of first to basically eating crow because I was 0-2 after I started talking trash. And then UCLA jumped up early, 17-7 against Kansas State, and I was thinking I was going to go 0 for 3 on the day. But you were 2-0 and probably were feeling good about your Kansas State pick, even though it was 17-7.
I was feeling good. Josh Rosen wasn't playing for UCLA. He had a quote-unquote concussion. Doesn't want to get hurt in the Cactus Bowl. And the team doctors were advising him to maybe not play, so he's getting ready for the draft. Although he's a different story with the draft altogether, where you've seen this, he's saying if Cleveland gets the number 1 pick and they say they're going to take him, he might go back to college instead of taking the millions to play in Cleveland. But, yeah, Bill Snyder gets win number 210 for Kansas State, so pretty incredible by them. Yeah, 3-0, that rounded out the day for me. Felt pretty good.
Well, it stopped the bleeding for me, kept me within striking distance, and falling too far out of the lead against the leaderboard. And it brought you from basically last place all the way up. Now let's go over the bowl games, and you have a bowl game that you want to talk about. And I gotta say, Sean, from the bottom of my heart, I love that you hate Florida State as much as I do. Go ahead. Let Florida State have it about this bowl game.
Yes, the Independence Bowl today, pitting Florida State against Southern Miss. Florida State is not a bowl-eligible team. This came up, I think some internet guy, like Reddit or one of those other internet things, found out that Florida State's win over Delaware State does not count towards bowl eligibility. And that's because Delaware State only used 87% of their available scholarships and financial aid. And for a win over a team to count towards bowl eligibility, they need to use 90%. Now, to Florida State's defense, I guess, it's not their responsibility to check how much of their opponents' money is allocated where. But that game doesn't count, so, reschedule UL Monroe at the end to try to sneak into a bowl game to keep this streak alive. Drives me nuts. Florida State does not deserve to be in a bowl game this year, and anyone who tells you otherwise, any Florida State fan who's pumped to be in the Independence Bowl is out of their mind. But this year they left 3 bowl-eligible teams at home. Buffalo, UT San Antonio, and Western Michigan are all legit bowl-eligible teams. They beat 6 teams who qualified as bowl-eligible wins, and they're all at home not playing while Florida State gets to go to the Independence Bowl. And the Independence Bowl in the NCAA gets to line their pockets with money because Florida State fans will go to this game, whereas Buffalo, UTSA, and Western Michigan fans won't.
Yeah, and a lot of people, so Florida State responded with they got back in contact with Delaware State, and somehow they excused the fact, I don't know, I read some story where Florida State basically said, no, that story's false, they had the correct number, and I heard a lot of people saying that the fact that it was 87% instead of 90% shouldn't matter. It's all just a technicality. So I have the perfect solution to this. How about FCS teams don't count towards your schedule? So if you have 6 wins and one of those wins is against basically a high school team like Delaware State, you don't get to count that towards your bowl eligibility if the other 2 teams that are also have 6 wins have wins against FBS opponents. If their 6 wins are FBS opponents, they go over you. So I looked at UTSA's schedule. Their 6 wins were against all FBS opponents. And now I'm going to look up Western Michigan's football schedule and see where their wins came from.
Most of their wins come in conference because Western Michigan is a team that, like, the Power 5 schedules early in the year. So most of their wins come against lower tier Power 5 or in conference. This would have been a perfect chance for the NCAA to get rid of the cupcake schedules, because now you have to schedule these guys at your own risk if they're not, giving out the appropriate amount of money. This could have been a chance to send a statement and say, Florida State, you're out. Maybe schedule someone better next year.
Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, they played Wagner was one of their wins. So I would give UTSA the nod for the fact that they played all FBS teams as their 6 wins. Not, hey, you played FCS. I don't know. I just hate that they have these FCS wins count towards anything. And I get it. These FCS schools get a nice paycheck. It pays for their student athletic fund or whatever. It pays for their athletic program and everything. But why don't we make these games preseason games? To have that be your opening week, the last weekend of August or something. We talk about how we're concerned about concussions. Let's face it, most of these football teams take their starters out to begin with in the second quarter, and if this game doesn't count, then I would just have my first-string quarterback play 1 or 2 series like they do in the playoffs, and then I'd put the rest of my team in after that anyways. So if you want to get these cupcake wins, you can get them in and have your team play in front of the crowd, and you can have like your walk-on scout team player get a chance to catch a touchdown, and it also just doesn't count towards anything that matters.
Yeah, this is just the chance for the NCAA to like right a big wrong with all these cupcakes, but I mean, all they see is the dollar signs, of course. That's how they operate. So Florida State, the bigger program, they travel better, bigger fan base. I'm gonna not watch the Independence Bowl out of protest.
I'm right there with you. I just usually protest any Florida State game anyway, and I just check the scores and hope they lose. Yeah. Let's get on to other real. I did pick FSU to win.
They're the way better team.
I wanted to pick Southern Mississippi to win, but I just couldn't do it. My pride comes over my hatred for Florida State, so I made the smart choice. I made the choice that probably everybody else made in our group. So, yeah. And then I did pick Iowa to beat Boston College. Any team that Adazio's coaching is a team I don't want to pick. So Iowa was the easy choice for me there.
Yeah, Iowa's looked good in certain games. Their blowout of Ohio State, they certainly looked good. They're pretty similar teams, Iowa and Boston College. I expect a low-scoring defensive game, but I went with the heart. I went Big Ten, Iowa.
Yep, and let's skip over some of these other bowl games. Let's talk about bowl games between top 25 opponents. We got Virginia Tech versus Oklahoma State. I went with Oklahoma State on this one. It was another one where I went back and forth on. But I trust Oklahoma State's offense over Virginia Tech's offense. For now, Virginia Tech's in their first year with Fuente. So I'll take the mullet over Fuente.
Yeah, this one's in your backyard there, Camping World Bowl. But yeah, contrasting styles for sure. Virginia Tech's more of a defensive team, and Oklahoma State lights up the scoreboard. Mason Rudolph is a legit next-level talent playing quarterback for them. So I picked the offense over defense as well, and I went Oklahoma State to win the Camping World Bowl.
And then we got Stanford versus TCU. Another game where I went back and forth, but I took Bryce Love and Stanford's defense over Kenny football and TCU Horned Frogs.
Yeah, so that one's the Alamo Bowl. So TCU a little bit of home field advantage there. Bryce Love though has had time to heal up. He's been banged up all season long while still being extremely effective all season long. And unlike some of these other draft hopefuls like Josh Rosen, Bryce Love is expected to play in this game. This is going to be one of the sneaky best games of the week. TCU's a 3-point favorite. I also took Stanford. I think they got the win with Bryce Love. I think he's a difference maker.
So I'm looking at my picks right now, and I scrolled down and I saw Washington State, Michigan State, and I had Washington State picked. And just now, while you were talking, I switched over to Michigan State. Was that a good choice by me?
I have Washington State in that game, and I've been kind of down on Michigan State all year long. I don't know. Their win over Penn State was kind of a goofy win with the 4-hour weather delay in there. I love Mark D'Antonio, but I think Washington State's the better team. I think they have a prolific offense, and I think Washington State, it's going to be another offense versus defense game. And again, I picked the offense of Washington State.
All right, our next top 25 matchup goes all the way down to USC versus Ohio State. I'm going USC on this one for some reason. I'm regretting it looking at it now. But, gosh, I hate betting against Urban Meyer when he's had weeks to prepare. But USC has just looked like such a balanced team lately. And I can see their offense putting up a lot of points against that defense.
Well, this is, for me, it's the best game outside of the playoff. These are the two teams with probably the best case who are left out to have been in the playoff. So Ohio State, USC in the Cotton Bowl. Ohio State is currently 7.5-point favorites over USC. This is going to come down to if Sam Darnold can take care of the ball. The Ohio State defense, they've been very good all year. So their game where they gave up a lot of points against Iowa, that was mostly due to J.T. Barrett throwing picks. So that was not really on the defense. The only team that really scored a lot of points on them was Oklahoma. And I don't think USC's offense is quite as good as Oklahoma's. Ohio State, like you said, though, you're giving Urban Meyer weeks to prepare. He's pissed off he didn't make the playoff. J.T. Barrett's had weeks to prepare for this game. I have Ohio State in this game, but I think it's going to be a really fun, high-scoring game. And we'll just see if Darnold can hold on to the ball.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. I think it's going to look a lot like that Penn State USC game last year in the Rose Bowl. And speaking of Penn State, what's that?
I think it'll look a lot like Penn State, Ohio State this year. A lot of big plays, a lot of high-scoring games, and it's going to be, it'll come down to maybe whoever has the ball last.
Well, we both mentioned Penn State, so let's talk about their matchup against Washington. Similar styles of offense. They like to run the ball. They both have pretty good quarterbacks, not great world-beater quarterbacks, but quarterbacks that you would love to have on your team. I picked Penn State, though, to win this game.
I did, too. I went pretty Big Ten homer on a lot of these games, but I think Penn State's a better team. We talked last week and the week before about how Saquon Barkley's numbers have gone down a little bit, but he's still finding ways to impact the game. And that his numbers have been down due to other teams game planning against him. And Washington's got a pretty good defense. But Saquon's still a major threat to catch the ball out of the backfield. And he's got a few kick returns for touchdowns this year. So he'll find a way to put his stamp on this game. And I think in big-time games like this, I like to go with the star players and the ones I think are going to take over. And I think the combination of Saquon and Trace McSorley is better than Jake Browning at Washington.
And then our next top 25 is actually a top 10 matchup. Is this down in Miami, between Miami and Wisconsin? Is that the Orange Bowl game?
The Orange Bowl is a home game for the U, so expect to see the turnover chain out. I have Wisconsin in this one.
I do too. I picked Wisconsin. I think they're going to be able to run the ball on this Miami team. It's going to be hard to turn over the ball when these running backs don't cough up the football a lot. I think they wear them down. We said that Miami was ahead of schedule, and now now that they're finally facing some decent top opponents, we're seeing that they're not there yet. So we talked about how they have a good recruiting class in. I think they're still a year away, so I'm going to go Wisconsin on this one.
Yeah, Wisconsin plays a style that travels very well by relying on their defense and running the ball. Jonathan Taylor is an absolute stud running back. And if they keep giving him the ball, I think they'll be in good shape. And Wisconsin actually showed me, even though they lost the Big Ten championship, they showed me that they can compete in a little bit of a higher scoring game, even if they fall behind a little bit. But as long as they're not relying on Horned Brook too much, I think despite this game being down in Miami, I think Wisconsin will win this game.
Yeah, and I know that I said let's stick to the top 25 teams, but Jen would be mad at me if I didn't talk about Michigan, South Carolina. So let's talk about Michigan, South Carolina over there at over in Tampa. Is that still called the Outback Bowl?
It is, yes.
All right. I got Michigan winning this one. I never bet on Will Muschamp. Never have, never will. And so I got Michigan winning this one. I think they win pretty big.
I think it's going to come down. South Carolina's got a pretty good defense. I have South Carolina for now, but this is one of my ones that I marked to come back and look at later. Michigan's been plagued by bad quarterback play all year. They have an excellent defense, an elite defense, and I don't know that South Carolina's going to be able to score enough points, but Michigan's always got the ability with the poor quarterback play to shoot themselves in the foot. So this one's kind of a coin flip for me right now. I'm probably going to talk myself into going Michigan to represent the Big Ten, but as we speak right now, I have South Carolina.
I'm going to talk you into it right now.
Okay, do it.
Michigan's been playing bad offense all year. Will Muschamp has been playing bad offense his entire coaching career. So I get it. He's got the good defense, but he's not going to have the offense. He fired his offensive coordinator, what was it, the first week of December? So who knows who his offensive coordinator is going to be. And Will Muschamp, his defense is very beatable. And I think John Harbaugh is just a smarter coach, and will figure out a way to out-scheme Will Muschamp's defense. And they'll probably win. Like I said, they'll win big. By win big, I mean they'll win something like 20-6 or 20-9, something like that.
I think part of my reasoning here taking South Carolina was I figured a lot of people in our group are going to take Michigan. And at some point, you got to make your hay. You got to be different than people to make up some ground. So I might be sticking with my South Carolina pick, even though I feel like Michigan has a pretty good chance in this game. I know you're picking Michigan. Right, I know your girlfriend's picking Michigan. I got to go opposite here, be the contrarian.
All right, man. Well, we'll take your. I should have listened to you next week.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go UCF Auburn. Here's where I'm probably going to be the contrarian. I don't know how everybody else is picking, but I'm 10,000% behind UCF. There is no doubt in my mind UCF does not win in this football game. The second Scott Frost came back and said, look, I'm 100% behind this team. I owe it to these players. And he's been there every day at practice, getting these players ready. Now that signing day is over, I think he has even more time to concentrate on this game. I just think UCF has athletes that Auburn's not expecting them to have. And I think that Scott Frost is a better coach than Gus Malzahn. I got UCF winning this one. In a tight one, but I do got them winning.
All right, so this is the Peach Bowl, and Auburn is opening up at 9.5-point favorites. Auburn, until that SEC championship, was looking like a playoff team, and they were playing like a playoff team. I have Auburn in this game with my pick. With my heart, I have UCF. I would love to see them win this game. I don't think there's a game on this whole bowl schedule where the entire country, other than Auburn fans, is behind one team. I think everybody wants to see UCF win, complete the undefeated season, and have something to build off of going towards next year. But I think UCF has sneaky athletes, but Auburn has those 5-star, big-time athletes, and I think they're going to overwhelm UCF.
I don't know that that's true. I think there's still a lot of Power 5 elitist snobs out there. I know I've seen a ton of SEC fans that just want to tell me that UCF's going to get blown out. I've had my friend who's an Alabama fan. I'm trying to get him to take a bet with me because he thinks Auburn's going to win by 10 to 14 points at least is what he told me. I know a lot of Gator fans have been down on me on Twitter about my support for UCF, so I don't know that the country's behind them because I think people need that security blanket that Power 5 actually means something, and they don't want to see lowly old UCF to shatter that image, that security blanket that they have. So we'll see. I got UCF. I'm 100% behind them on that one.
It'll definitely be a fun game. I'm hoping for another high scoring game out of that one.
Well, I know who your next pick is going to be. I'm pretty sure you picked LSU to beat Notre Dame, another game in my own backyard.
I absolutely did pick Coach O and the Tigers to beat Notre Dame. We wrote LSU off pretty early in the year when they lost that game at home to Troy. But man, did they bounce back in a big way. Got all the way up to number 17. I don't know. This one I think was just blind hate picking LSU. I don't really think they're a better team than Notre Dame. I think it'll be a tight, competitive, low-scoring game in this one.
Yeah, so these games right here, the Auburn game, the LSU game, the Georgia game, and the Alabama game will be a testament as to whether or not what I've been saying all year long is true. That is that the SEC is down. So did LSU bounce back after that Troy loss, or did they just play a down SEC and they were just kind of better than the other teams that they were playing? We'll see what happens. With this, I did pick LSU to win, but if Notre Dame wins this game, I won't be surprised.
Yeah, Notre Dame's kind of limped in at the end of their schedule here. That blowout against Miami, they barely beat Navy, and then they lose by 18 to Stanford. So they're kind of trending the wrong way right now, whereas I think LSU's a little bit on the uptick. So I think that's why I gave them the edge in that game.
Yeah, and that's out of those games that I just mentioned, between Michigan, the Michigan, USC, UCF, Auburn, Notre Dame, LSU, UJ, Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson. LSU's the only SEC team that I picked out of those. I have the SEC going 1-4 in those 5-game stretch, so it's no surprise that I picked Oklahoma to beat Georgia. Wow. Apparently I'm back in middle school, and my balls just dropped. That's why I got Georgia losing to Oklahoma. I go back and forth on this game. It's really going to depend on who's better. Baker Mayfield against Georgia's defense or Georgia's running game with Chubb, Michelle, and Swift against Oklahoma's defense. I'm going to go with Oklahoma right now on this one.
I picked Oklahoma in this game as well. I think Baker Mayfield is the best college football player on the planet right now. I think Georgia's starting a freshman quarterback in Fromm. It hasn't come back to bite him this year yet. I think this might be the time, even though Oklahoma doesn't have like a great defense or anything. I think this Oklahoma offense overwhelms Georgia, and I don't think Georgia can score the points in a shootout. I also took Oklahoma to win this game.
Yeah, and a little fun stat. Oklahoma is 4-0 their last 4 games against the SEC. They've beaten the likes of Alabama and Auburn within that 4-0 stretch. So this whole, it's SEC versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma doesn't play against defenses and stuff. That whole attitude, you just throw that out the window. Now, granted, those 4 wins were with Bob Stoops as their coach. So let's see if the new guy can come in and win.
And let's just take for a second here how much Oklahoma nailed the coaching change by going in-house Lincoln Riley. I mean, they did an awesome job with this. They didn't miss a beat.
And he'll kind of have to do what Kirby Smart has to do. It's like a wait-and-see type process. These are both 2 brand-new coaches that came in behind really good coaches before them that set them up for success. But I like the roster that Oklahoma has over the roster that Georgia has. If Oklahoma goes up 21-0, I have no faith in Fromm to lead Georgia to a comeback in a shootout.
I mean, this game's going to be the most watched game of all of these players' career, and when these lights are on extremely bright, are you taking Baker Mayfield or Fromm? Because I'm going Mayfield every time.
Yeah, and Fromm, man, so this is what I don't get.
He's a good player. I'm not like anti-Fromm. He's a good player. He's just young. He's
an okay player. Let's put that to light. And this is what a lot of SEC fans say, and for some years I've said it too because there's been some truth to it, but there's no truth to it this year. So what a lot of SEC fans will say is that, Oklahoma, USC, Ohio State, they don't play SEC defenses, so that's why their offensive numbers look so good. Well, why can't we say for the SEC, hey, Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, you don't play any offenses. Name me any 5 quarterbacks from the SEC that you can hang your hat on the last 5 years and say this guy is for real, as a real deal quarterback. You can't give me anybody. So if you just are a casual observer of college football, you'll hear that Jake Fromm is a really good quarterback. Do you know what Jake Fromm's numbers are this year? 2,100 yards and 21 touchdowns. That's not bad, but 2,100 yards in 13 games? Are you kidding me? That's a very, very low yardage, and 21 touchdowns, that's less than 2 touchdowns a game. That's not any offensive production. So why
right, but
would
what I look at for Fromm is the 21 touchdowns to only the 5 picks. They're a running team. Everyone knows that. So they don't need him to go out there and throw 40 times a game.
Right. Right, they have to be a running team because their quarterback's not that good. I mean, I'm sure if we went to Oklahoma stats, their running backs probably won't have the 26 touchdowns that Chubb and Michelle have, but it's not like they're not contributing to that offense.
Yeah, well, Oklahoma's got it just like Georgia. They got a 3-headed attack, so there's not one stud running back. I mean, Anderson's got just under 1,000 yards, but it's just different styles, I think. I mean, who knows if you plug Fromm into a Big 12 system and he throws the ball 45 times a game, what you get with that. If you get Mayfield's numbers with the 41 touchdowns and the 4,300 yards. I think he does what's asked of him, and I think he does it pretty well.
No, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm just saying he's an okay quarterback.
Is he a playoff winning quarterback? Probably not.
Probably not. It's gonna come down to those running backs and whether or not they can run the ball against Oklahoma. Let's go to the game of the week of the bowl series. Alabama versus Clemson, round 3. The last 2 rounds have been fantastic, and I don't really foresee round 3 being any different. But Alabama's going to need a lot of help from their defense, and they're going to need a lot of help from somebody not named Hurts.
Yeah, so Bama opens this game 3-point favorites, and I don't know what people see that I'm not seeing. Like you said, these last 2 games between these teams have come down to the last drive, the last play. But I think the difference this year is that, unlike the last 2 years, Clemson comes into this game with the better defense than Alabama. And I think Clemson has a better offense than Alabama as well. I think they're the more complete team. I think Kelly Bryant's had time to get healthy with this break. And I picked Clemson to win this Sugar Bowl.
I did as well. And it's going to be Clemson versus Oklahoma. And my next bet will be that Clemson beats Oklahoma in another close, fantastic shootout of a national championship game.
And I took Oklahoma to win the championship. It's hard for me to bet against the best player I see on the field, and that's Baker Mayfield, and it's not even close.
Very good. We'll get a chance to break those down. So we could be completely wrong, and then it's Georgia versus Alabama, or it could be Georgia versus Clemson, or Clemson or Alabama versus Oklahoma. All 4 of those games seem exciting, no matter which way you plug and play it. So I think we're in for a much better playoff this year than we have the last 3 years. So I'm excited, man. One last thing before we go out, I want to talk about bowl swag.
All right.
And we kind of looked over some of them, and let's give some studs and duds. Instead of giving game balls, let's give some studs and duds to some of this bowl swag. I'm going to give a dud to, let's see, the Gildan, New Mexico Bowl. You got Oakley sunglasses, a backpack, a lit tumbler, a beanie, a blanket, a cap, and hey, that trend is still going on, I guess. Let's give them a fidget spinner.
Oh, God.
What the hell? Gildan, New Mexico Bowl. You get a dud for that swag bag. What do you got as a dud?
I'm going to give a dud to the Tax Slayer Bowl because the players of the Tax Slayer Bowl got a Fossil watch, while the players who played in the Cactus Bowl got a Fossil watch, a Yeti cooler and tumbler, a backpack, a legendary hat, a JBL flip speaker, and a blanket. So the Cactus Bowl just dunked on the Tax Slayer Bowl by giving them the same thing plus like 5 more things.
So wait, the Tax Slayer Bowl only gave them just one item?
Oh, and a gift suite, whatever that is.
Oh, a gift suite, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking. Another dud has to be the Academy Sports Outdoors Texas Bowl. You get gift cards to Academy Sports and Outdoors, a duffel bag, and a belt buckle. What the hell am I going to do with a belt buckle?
Yeah, it could be a pretty sweet belt buckle. Who knows? I'm going to have to give a stud, though, to the Fiesta Bowl. Every player in that gets a PlayStation 4 bundle. I don't know what comes in that, but seems pretty expensive. And, again, a Fossil watch. Fossil's got their fingerprints all over this thing, and a nice backpack. So that looks a lot
Which
better
bowl
than
game
just...
was that?
That's the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a good one. Can't go wrong with the PS4 Pro bundle.
No.
I got to give a co-stud to the Citrus Bowl and the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Citrus Bowl gives you a $400 Best Buy gift card and a Timely Watch Company watch, so no Fossil watch there.
All right.
But then Chick-fil-A Bowl gives you a $300 Vanilla Visa gift card, which I'm assuming is you can use it anywhere.
Sounds like
Ultimate
it.
Ears Wonder Boom Bluetooth speakers, a Fossil watch, and just in case as a football player you don't have enough of these, we're going to throw in a football.
There you go. I have one last dud, and that's the Cotton Bowl. They would not disclose, so what the hell? Tell me what you're giving these guys. I want to know. So big dud to the Cotton Bowl for not telling me.
I think we should have to disclose it because we need to know for NCAA rules to make sure you're sticking within the limits.
Yeah, that's so big dud to the Cotton Bowl.
Oh, wow. Sugar Bowl, like you're what was used to be a BCS bowl game, you're giving a new era cap, some Rock'em socks, and a panoramic game photo. You got to do better than that, Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, that's pretty weak.
Rose Bowl. Rose Bowl's pretty good. No, you just get a backpack and an adjustable hat. What are these like? How does the Peach Bowl beat you out? How does the Citrus Bowl beat you out when you're the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl? You're the playoff games. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's embarrassing for them. The Quick Lane Bowl, these guys get like pants and hoodies and stuff. So thank God Ohio State's not going. Otherwise, they'd start selling them and have
yeah, they would.
No playoffs.
They start. You'd see a whole bunch of players with new sleeve tattoos.
Yeah.
Oh man! All right. Well, I think that wraps up our show. We're right at an hour, so we got no swag here, but we'll finish it off, man. I hope you have a good New Year. We'll come in and we'll hopefully next week we'll talk about the championship game and how we did in our bowl picks and everything else. We'll probably record again on Wednesday. Not sure when we'll record. Oh no, not Wednesday, but we'll have to figure it out, man, because I don't know what your New Year's Eve looks like.
Yeah, we'll see with all the holidays. Get a little bit of a goofy schedule, but yeah, happy bowl season to everybody.
Happy bowl season. Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2018. Go Gators.
Go Illini.
See ya.
Later.